Hello, my name is Layth Sidiq, and I'm a violinist, composer, and educator who was born in Iraq but raised in Jordan. And I'm actually alumni of Berklee, and I'm really excited to be able to share with you a little bit about the concepts of Arabic music, ranging from makam, ornamentation, the different regions of Arabic music, and to see how the profound depth of this region and the heritage, the strong heritage and culture that comes out of it. I started playing the violin at the age of 4, mainly studying Western European classical music. Now that I'm older, I thought it was funny that I grew up in the Middle East in an Arab country, but I was studying Western European classical music. But even though that was the case, at my house, we were always listening to Arabic songs, whether from Egypt, Iraq, Syria. On the way to the airport, sometimes we would put the radio and listen to different artists like Kulthum, Fairuz, and others. So I was like a sponge as a kid. I was listening to these songs a lot. But my technical training on my instrument was from the lens of the Western European classical music. Later in life, when I came to study at Berklee, I felt a lot closer to my roots. I wanted to really be able to understand where I'm from and how that music actually helped shape me as a young kid. That's when I started to dive deeper into Arabic classical music, studying with my teacher Simon Shaheen here in Boston. Now I'm an educator. I teach around the world different concepts of this music, and it's just a real joy to do so. One of the most important things that I noticed in my career as an educator so far, typically people look at the Arab world and they imagine it as one single unit. But then when you look deeper, each country with its own cuisine, different dialects, different musical idioms, different traditions, rituals, and so on. And it just shows you how beautifully individualistic the music is and how much there is so much connection there. When you look at the Gulf region, North Africa, the Levant, Iraq, especially growing up in Iraq, I know that there is something so unique there that also needs to be discussed and talked about. But when I look at the whole region, there are certain elements that unify all these countries, despite the tiny differences. Those are elements like a makam, tarab, and also microtonality. And you look at those three big sort of topics that unify the whole region, despite being also slightly different between country to country, but they're still sort of an umbrella above the region. So to start with the first one, the concept of makam, which for me is the most exciting one. Typically people usually call it a mode or a scale, but I think it's a lot different than that. The best way to describe it is a melodic framework, meaning that when you learn about a maqam, unlike a scale in the Western tradition where you learn a set of notes that are in a specific pattern or sequence, ascending and descending, a maqam you learn it as a melody, as perhaps a song. Each region or each country in the Arab world would depict a maqam in a slightly different way. If you look at a major scale, for example, a C major, let's say, maybe you look at a country like Germany in the tradition of Western classical music, or France or Italy, and you ask them to play a C major scale, they will play it the same way. But if you ask somebody in the Arab world to play the equivalent of a major scale, which is maqam ajam, we call it, then in Iraq, they'll play it differently. In Syria, differently. In Egypt, slightly differently. In Morocco, differently. And they might have even different names for the same maqam. You start to see that a maqam really refers to a specific region. It's a way to introduce a region. It has its own specific ornamentation within it and its own mood, which I think is very special. And as an artist, being able to play a maqam in that way is so special because it becomes very personal to you as well, what choice of maqam you choose. The second concept that is also special is the concept of Tarab, which would translate to musical ecstasy. A very short story if I can share about how you can feel this sense of Tarab. One time I was performing on stage with a very, very important vocalist, and I was very excited and thrilled to be on stage with them. And I was completely invested in that moment. I wanted to give it my all. And my colleagues on stage were also in that same space, that same zone, really invested in the moment. And the artist, the vocalist who I was inspired to be with on stage, was also invested in that moment. And to add even on top of that, the audience who were in the hall were also willing to receive what's being offered to them. So that sort of community that is totally one and willing to be in that moment together resulted in this concept of tarab, that we were all elevated on that stage and we were able to take chances to push the boundaries of the music and come up with different ideas, and that I think helps evolve the music. Tarab as a word also refers to a musical genre of the late century. Singers like Kulthum from Egypt, like Muhammad Abdul Wahab, Farid al-Atrash, Sabah Fakhri from Syria, and others from Iraq, like the old maqam singers, they really sort of revolutionized the concept of Tarab, perhaps because people had more time in the day to listen to concerts. Sometimes these concerts would be an hour long, 2 hours long, where a singer would repeat and go over the same phrase more than once, oftentimes modulating between a maqam to a maqam. And the audience are so ready for this that they encourage more repetition, which in return makes the music take different directions and go off script. And that helped evolve the music and push it to a different direction. Not necessarily always better, but a different direction. And third, and also very important, is the concept of microtonality. My teacher and dear colleague, Mr. Simon Shaheen, who really was a person that taught me a lot about this music and was a big part of my journey, always refers and describes the concept of microtonality in a beautiful way visually. If you imagine a piano with the white and black keys, you can imagine another red key that sits between the white and the black. It's a note between the notes. And it's something that is very important to Arabic music, but it's also not exclusively an Arabic music thing. Microtonality exists in other regions around the world. You can hear it in Norwegian folk, you can hear it in flamenco, southern Spain, in certain Chinese or Korean traditions. I should say that in Arabic music, unlike the other genres where it's mostly a passing note or something that is part of the tradition, also in blues you hear microtones, but in Arabic music it's more of a structured thing. We choose where to insert them and they're part of our maqamat. We learn them that way. So to review, we talked about a maqam being the melodic framework concept in Arabic music, tarab, which is the musical ecstasy aspect of the music, and third, microtonality. Even though the region is so varied and diverse, those three main elements really sit at the top and unify the whole area.